So there's much talk about the dangers involved in Kundalini awakening and even spiritual awakening. And people talk about psychosis and Kundalini syndrome. Yet what are the dangers, and is it actually really dangerous, and how can it be dangerous to do these things? Well, I've researched quite a lot into this. And yes, there are the typical things of what you hear out of gurus and things, that it's dangerous and you must practice it with them. Or no, you can't force it. You can't work on it. It has to be something that's spontaneous. Well, if it had to be spontaneous, we wouldn't have Kriya Yoga or Kundalini Yoga, and they wouldn't have survived for thousands of years. So it's not really a question that you can't work on it and help it go. We've also had Shaktipat, which has been around even longer. And that's exactly what Shaktipat does. It opens up the pranic energy body. And then with time, you can raise your Kundalini. You can have the Shakti going up. Once the Shakti's gone up and you go into more advanced processes, you can have the Shiva coming down. And so, where are the dangers? If there's such things exist and some people can do it, then how come they can do it and others can't? Because they know what they're doing. Okay, yes. However, if you actually look at this, the psychosis, the Kundalini syndrome, these are the major dangers, apart from obviously if we're talking about people that have perhaps some type of mental or psychological disorder. So I'm not talking about people who have mental problems or disabilities. So for them, obviously, there are more risks in everything. However, for regular people, how dangerous is it, and what are the dangers? Well, the main danger is the lack of acceptance, because one of the stages that you do go through, and many people say, oh, if you force it, this is where you're going to get to, and that's where you're going to end up. Well, no, but it is a stage that you have to go through. And that stage was coined quite a while ago, the dark night of the soul. And it is a process you have to go through, because you get to a point where to move on, you have to let go of your ego and your programming. And if you don't, this is where it can become dangerous. This is where the problems arise. So to be able to safely have a spiritual awakening, or to raise your Kundalini, which leads to a very powerful spiritual awakening, what we have to do first is work on our ego. Whilst we have to be in control of ourselves, whilst we fight, whilst we hold on to biases and beliefs, and basically the lack of trust in what you're doing in the actual awakening, that's when you can actually end up with a psychosis or a Kundalini syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. There are many negative experiences that you can find of this happening to people. But if you analyze it, a lot of them have happened because of people taking drugs or herbal medicines, and it's happened suddenly, or it's just happened spontaneously by itself, and they're not ready for it. And that's where the problems occur, because they suddenly have to face their own egos and they can't accept it. So to be able to do this safely, and this is one of the dangers, because there are sort of brands out there that say this is 100% safe and their systems are 100% safe. Nothing in life is 100% safe. Crossing the road. I mean, I could cross the road 1,000,000 times in my life and never have a problem. That doesn't mean to say people don't get hit by cars when they cross the road or slip on ice. There are many dangers and many things can happen. So whilst I'm saying this, I'm not saying this is the only possible danger, but it is the most common one. Because the more this happens and the more people experiment with it, the more situations are going to arise. But for now, the main problem that I have researched and discovered boils down to, as I said, problem of ego, fighting your own mind, which at the end of the day is the same problem with depression and anxiety. It's trying to hold on to something that you shouldn't be holding on to. It's trying to live in a certain way that isn't healthy for you. And until you give up those things, until you change your lifestyle, you can't actually get over the depression or the anxiety. And so the same in a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini awakening. Until you relieve yourself, until you change the way you live, until you change the way you think about things, this is where there are dangers. And so when someone says their system is completely safe, it's only completely safe if the people are ready for it. Now, no medium or facilitator can say whether that person's ego is in check. And this is one of the other problems. When people start doing this, they think, oh, I have the power to be able to give it to other people, and their spiritual egos go up. And then if you question them, they'll come back to you. And as I've done, trying to point out that you can't really call things 100% safe. And then they hurl insults at you, etc., etc. And you're just trying to look out for everybody. But anyway, to be able to do this safely, first, you must wake up to your situation. You must wake up to your programming. What do I mean by wake up to your programming? Well, let's keep it very simple. You are a biochemical computer. All your memories, all your thoughts, all your emotions are reactions to input you are receiving from the exterior. So it's literally, you are being programmed by your environment. And then you have filters that will judge something in a certain way based on previous programming. So whilst we stay fixed to our filters, fixed to our beliefs, fixed to our programming, that's when problems can arise. Oh, I'm not ready for it. Well, there's the problem. It's happening. Go with the flow. This is the whole idea of Taoism. Go with the flow, the way. Be like the water. Go with the ups, go with the downs. And as long as you do this, and you go with an open mind and an open heart, and you take what comes, you roll with the punches, then there's no reason that you are going to face any huge problems. You are going to face difficulties because you're always going to get to a point. You're going to think, oh, my ego's in check. Oh, I've opened up. And you're going to be tested. And you're going to have to release. And the other thing you'll find is the more you awaken, the more things to a point will affect you. So you become more and more sensitive the more you awaken. And so if you are not constantly releasing through the process, and the process is a lifelong process, it's not, oh, well, I start today, I do it for 30 days. I tried Kundalini activations for 30 days and this is what happened to me. Well, it's not about 30 days. It's a lifelong process, and you have to constantly be accepting that you're opening up more, being more in tune with everything. But the more in tune you are, the more you are affected. If you take a radio antenna that's perfectly in tune, the more it's in tune, if it's, for example, a windy day, the more it can be affected. Yes, over time, the antenna can be made stronger and fixed better and tied down. But when we're talking about releasing, by releasing, we are becoming stronger, and so we can handle more. But it's very easy to say, oh, I'm releasing. And it's a very different thing to actually release and let go and be okay with it. So these are the dangers in spiritual awakening. If you don't release as your Shakti rises and you open up, if you refuse to peel off those layers, or if you get to a certain point and you get stuck, or you have an experience and then all you ever want to do is get back to that experience, well, you're going to run into problems. Because it's not about getting back to what you had. It's about moving on. You might have an amazing experience during an activation, for example, where you see everything. And now you're going to spend 10 years trying to get back to it. No, you've just been given a glimpse of what can happen. And if you force to get back to it, guess what? That's ego. If you're meant to go back to it, you will. If you're not, you won't. You just have to trust. It's all about trust. It's all about rolling with the punches, going with it, opening up all the time. And then you won't face the problems that so many people face in spiritual and Kundalini awakenings. I hope this has helped. I will guarantee that the more you open up, the more you will face and the more you have to release. And it can get very, very tricky to release. But you just have to keep working on yourself, working on your ego, let go of it. I mean, if you look at the yogic structure of it, to be able to get to a point where you can release your karma, to not be affected by programming of guilt, by programming of loyalty, by programming of all these things, to not be affected by those things, to not be affected by exterior stresses that come along and just let them bounce off you or brush over you, can be very challenging. Right, I think I've made the point clear. So I hope this helps. Remember to subscribe, like, comment. What do you think about what I've said? And if you find this useful, please, please, please share this with other people that you think might find it useful. Because obviously we know the more positive comments, the more sharing, the more likes, the more feedback that this video gets, the more the algorithm understands that you like it and the more it will share it with other people. So thank you very much, and I will see you in another video.